What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here. So I've been doing a lot of these little bits before videos, and for this one I had this idea in my head since it's Valentine's Day of like me representing Chelsea, and I'm asking all these different competitions represented by these, beautiful women PNGs that were going to be on screen. Like, will you be my Valentine and all this stuff, and then ending it with some Jabba the Hutt looking woman representing the Conference League is like, all right, I'll settle for that. But to be honest, I'm just too tired. I'm exhausted. I don't know what to say. I honestly don't. There have been so many things said about the club recently. And obviously, I've not done a review for the past couple of games and since the transfer window ended. But I've seen what Chelsea fans are talking about online, and I don't feel like I can add anything else. Because the owners have absolutely royally screwed us. They've hamstrung the first team. They've hamstrung Maresca, which Maresca is not even a great manager, as has been proven over the past run of games. And we're just stuck with it. And what makes it even worse is the announcement that Abramovich, some of the sanctions were removed from him, basically proving that they just wanted to punish him because, oh, he's Russian and we don't like that. And so he had to sell the club to these idiot owners that don't know what the hell they're doing. And now we're just sat here having to suffer because of it. Frankly, I'm just shocked that there's not been more of a protest or a riot against the owners of this club by this point. Because this is season 3, and we're doing the same shit. We're doing the same stupid stuff in the transfer market that is absolutely killing the team, the confidence, the manager, all of it. So first of all, we'll talk about some of the transfer stuff and behind the scenes stuff because it's ridiculous. First of all, transfer-wise, we did nothing in January. We brought back one defender for the first team in Chalobah that should never have been sent out on loan in the first place, let's be honest. When you compare him to Badiashile or Disasi, and yet he's the one being loaned out, he's much better than both of them. In my opinion, he's second best at the club. And then you bring in some young midfielder from France who's not any better than the player we already have on loan in France at the moment, but he's playing for the other club that's owned by our owners, and they don't want that club to do poorly. So let's make sure we don't get as good of a player to make sure this other club that's owned by the same owners does better. Let's not help Chelsea, let's help Strasbourg. That makes sense, right? To have owners that care more about their other club than trying to help what should be their main focus. And then striker-wise, everybody was saying we needed a striker. Didn't bring in another one. We brought Fofana back from his loan, and he's injured for the rest of the season, which I do have an issue with that, because when he first was brought back, nothing on the website said anything about his injury. So I was convinced, okay, well, we're not going and buying another striker for some stupid reason, because there were options out there. So we're just going to bring back one of our loaned out strikers that he didn't even succeed at Burnley. So sure, let's give him a shot. But no, he's out for the rest of the season. Nowhere on the website did it say that. So it's almost like they wanted to gaslight some Chelsea fans that read the website stuff and didn't pay attention, because I don't know what's going on in other leagues. And he was playing, I think, in Italy or something. So I didn't know it was a knee injury that's basically kept him out for the whole season. So I just assumed we're getting our third striker. No, we're not. We're not getting anything from him. And now, of course, Jackson and Guiu both out. Now we're without a striker. And we're having to go with false nines. And Maresca, obviously, I'll talk about him when we get to the actual game stuff. But he doesn't know what to do without an actual striker up there. Without a player like Jackson or Guiu that actually likes to press and play that number 9 position well. And then the final thing to talk about is, of course, the goalkeeping situation. Why the hell do we not bring Petrovic back on loan? When you've got Sanchez, who's been terrible, and then you've got Jorgensen, who's had some pretty poor games as well, and you've got this guy who last season did well for you. He played well. He was not a world star. He was not anything that absolutely was dominating in goal. He was a decent keeper, though. He upset Sanchez for his position, and yet we're just going to loan him out and then not bring him back whenever Sanchez is not doing it again. What's going on with the transfer team? I'm confused as far as what they saw that made them go, hey, let's sell and loan out all of these players, including 2 players in Felix and Chukwuemeka that could have helped us. Felix for sure, because he could play that false 9 up top, and he could do it better than Nkuku, because he has a very good high press, similar to that of Jackson. He's just not the same profile as Jackson. But he'll at least put pressure on the back line, so that way they don't have plenty of time to play out from the back. Why are we not using him? I'm assuming that's on Maresca, because for whatever reason, Maresca just doesn't want to play him. Don't ask me why, because every time he plays, he's easily in our top 3 or 5 players on the pitch. But we loan him out. We loan out Chukwuemeka for some reason. I don't know why he's not being used. And we also leave ourselves with one left back. in Cucurella. So if he's hurt or if he has another couple of games like I've seen from him, now all of a sudden we're without options at left back. And I'm so confused as to why. Because if you're looking at a run of results, we are falling off of a cliff. We have 2 wins, I think, out of 11 or 12 now. We've not been playing well. January is the time to fix that, and instead it felt like, you know what, we're doing pretty well. We don't have to do too much in January. In fact, we have too many players, so let's go ahead and get some of these players out of it. Now all of a sudden we're getting injuries, and we don't have the depth to back it up because we got rid of our depth. I don't understand why. Our form was falling off a cliff. Why did we not improve? And what's crazy about it is the women's team are undefeated this season, and they picked up more players. They went and signed 3 more players for the first team and offloaded a couple of players that were not quite up to the first team level. So why is our women's team, who is undefeated this season, their form is phenomenal, why are they making changes for their team, and yet the men's team is just, we're good. Our form's going just down the shitter. Let's just go ahead and sell some players. Let's go ahead and loan some players out. We don't need all these players here, right? We don't need all this extra depth here. It's ridiculous. And what's crazy also is the messaging coming out now from Maresca, the words he's using in press conference, the fact that we're supposedly not going for top 4 this season. When did that change? Earlier when it was we're not in a title race, that made sense because it was way too early to be saying that we were up there for the title. To say that that was the aim for this season was a little too ambitious, but finishing top 4 was definitely on the cards. The way that we started this season, the way that we were playing, top 4 should have been our goal. Now all of a sudden, it's okay if we don't get top 4. It's okay if we don't get Champions League next season, because we don't need it, right? We don't need to be in one of the best competitions in Europe to keep some of these star players here and keep them interested in this club. We don't need that competition. And so next season, whenever Palmer goes, you know what, I want to play in Champions League, we're going to lose our star player. The problem is this ownership is probably going to let him go because he'll probably bring in some really good money. He'll probably bring in 3 times what we paid for him. And they're going to go, sure, that sounds good to us, because this ownership does not care about winning anything. They don't care about success because they're American owners. And success to them is not, oh, can we win? Can we be competitive? Because you look at the MLS, it's why I hate the MLS so much. They are more focused on how can we make more money. That's what the MLS is all about. That's why the bottom teams, they get the better draft picks. They get help when you finish below, because it's okay if you're a loser. We're going to help you out to make sure that you're not always a loser. Because that's, for some reason, the American way when it comes to competition. And that's what's so dumb about it. And that's why the MLS is not interesting, because by the end of the season, if you're not in playoffs, you don't care. You're not trying. It's the same with most sports in America, which is why most sports in America suck to watch. Because if you're not one of the top teams, you don't care. You just write off the season and go, we'll go again next year. In Europe, you write off the season, well, guess what? Now you're in the second league. Now all of a sudden you're not making nearly as much money. Now you're suffering because of it. And it's like our owners, they don't care about trying to end in the Champions League, trying to get that extra money and the extra pool that has to be in the Champions League. The types of players you can bring in when you're in the Champions League, they don't care about any of that. What they care about is bringing in young talent and then selling them for a profit. Bringing in young talent, selling them for a profit. And that's where we're going to be until eventually it just all the wheels fall off and we just crash out of the Premier League and get relegated because we're just that terrible, because we've lost so much interest from players that want to come here and actually perform. We've just got guys in here that are looking to make a quick buck, so they don't really give a shit, and then eventually we fall into the championship. Until that happens, we're going to be mid-table. We're going to be just barely either Europa or Conference League or just outside of Europe every year, because we're going to have the same problems that we have for the past 3 seasons. We're going to be too young, too inexperienced, and not enough consistency in the club. And that goes to Maresca as well. We have no experience in our manager. And it's funny because I said at the beginning of the season, this was going to be Potter 2.0. What's ironic, the only other manager that we've had that's lost to Brighton at the Amex, Graham Potter. And the season has gone exactly the same as the first season. We started well. Potter had his initial run where he went on a good run of winning games and we looked good and we looked consistent, and then the form just fell off a cliff. That's exactly what's happened with Maresca. We started the first half of the season really well, and then we hit our rough patch and we just can't get out of it, and now we can't win games. We got 2 wins, and one is Wolves, who have their own slew of problems. It feels like there's a player coup at Wolves at the moment. And then West Ham, which I count that as kind of a slight on the owners, because the only other manager that's not been able to beat us was the first manager, Graham Potter, that they brought in. So he's that sorry of a manager that he can't even beat us right now when we're in our worst run of form. So that's more showing how much of an idiot these owners are. That's the first guy they trusted. He's terrible as a manager. So we're just in our worst run of form at the moment. It gives me no hope for the rest of the season. And honestly, just until we get new owners, if that ever is going to happen, or if we're just basically stuck with them until we run ourselves into the ground. But I just don't see where things are going to come from. Where's our attack going to come from? Because Palmer's getting marked out of games now, and there's nobody else that's providing anything going forward. And we don't have a striker until at least, I think, end of March is when they said Guiu might be back. But let's be honest, until Jackson gets back, we're not going to have a striker up top. And that's not until April. So until April, we're just going to be suffering because the transfer team didn't do their jobs. They didn't do what they were supposed to and make sure that we were going to be competitive for the rest of the season. But looking at the games that I missed, I mean, West Ham, again, there's not really much to talk about there other than the fact that it proves that Graham Potter's a terrible manager, and the fact that he's the first one that this new ownership brought in. I don't know what else to say other than they're idiots, because that's all of it in a nutshell. The FA Cup match last week, also against Brighton, I didn't actually watch that one. I watched like the first... Basically, until their first goal, I was kind of glancing at it, but I had a play to go to that some friends were in that night, and so I just lost interest. When I saw the lineup, when I saw Brighton's first goal go in, I just knew it was going to be a loss, so I didn't watch after that point. So coming into this one, I see basically the same lineup minus Dewsbury-Hall, and I think Tosin, Chalobah, and then obviously Jorgensen for Sanchez, and Madueke on for Sancho, I believe. So there were a couple of changes, but the big problems were still there. You know, we still have no striker up top, and we still have a weak defense. You still got Gusto back there because James, who's apparently okay, guys, he's not actually injured. No, he's on the bench. So clearly there is an issue there that he's dealing with, and we'll probably be hearing about him getting an injury in the next couple of weeks because if he's not fit enough to start, who knows what's going to happen. Looking at this match, I mean, it's basically the same issue that we've had for the past run of games. You know, we start pretty well. We put a little bit of high press on. We try to go at them. Even though Nkuku's not that much of a high presser, we still had a couple guys like Neto, like Palmer, who do tend to go at players and cause issues back there. We've got energy, and then it just all drops off. And what's ironic is the first goal is basically carbon copy how we lost the Man City match. You know, no pressure on the keeper whatsoever, and he just dumps it over the top because we're holding a high line. One guy goes in behind and then boom, goal. It's very easy. I'm shocked, honestly, that it happened because I don't know how Maresca doesn't see this. As much as they talked about watching tapes at the beginning of the season, they talked about preparing for these other teams, you would think that he would look at those two goals against Man City and go, we don't need to do that. You know, if we're not going to put that high press on the keeper, we should not be having everybody basically at half field with nobody in behind, especially against a team that you know has pace up top, like Brighton. And yet they do it again, and we give up another goal. And then the other two goals, I mean, it's just terrible defending in general. And this is no surprise. Our defense has not been good. They've not been good all season. We've just had enough going forward that we can outscore the other team, or we can put enough pressure on them. If we let teams get at us defensively, we don't have the defenders to be comfortable in the back. So ultimately, it's another tactical disaster class from Maresca, and this is twice in a row that he has been outmanaged by a 31-year-old manager who just lost 2 games ago 7-0. 7-0. And then he comes and beats us twice. There's a part of me after the second goal went in that I was kind of hoping for 5. I was kind of hoping that we would just get absolutely ripped apart, which we did, to be fair. I mean, overall, you look at the game, Brighton were the better team by far. We were never in this match. We didn't have a single shot on goal. In fact, they provided our only chance on goal that Verbruggen had to save. It was a deflection off of Webster. So we were never in the game, but I was really hoping it was going to be an embarrassing scoreline that might actually force a change, whether Maresca had to make a change or whether the board said, all right, we're just going to bring in at least a more capable manager who can maybe get something out of this season, maybe give us something to hope for. But as it is, I mean, 3-0, it's bad, it's embarrassing, it's another embarrassing result. We've had a few recently, but it's not enough to force a change. It's not enough to make Maresca go, you know what, maybe I should rethink what I'm doing. It's not enough to make the board go, maybe we should think about bringing in a better manager. So we're just stuck. We're stuck with this stubborn manager who doesn't want to change what he's doing. We're stuck with a board that doesn't want to make any big changes because they're making money and that's all that really matters to them. And so we just have to sit here and suffer as we're probably going to lose, I would say, 85% of our games for the rest of the season. And we'll be lucky to stay in Europe next year. It's going to take, we're going to have to win that one big game at the end of the season in the Conference League final, because we'll probably face nobody up until the final, like Fiorentina probably at the end. And we're going to have to hope that we can at least stand up to them and get a win there. And that'll be the only way we're getting Europe this season, because in the league, we've already faced a lot of the teams that we should be beating. I don't know where we're going to be getting points from here on out. And I fully expect some of the teams below us to start picking up points here and there. And I have no doubt that we'll be outside of the top 7 probably within a couple of months, probably by the end of March. But just quickly running through the individuals as well, because, I mean, the players are also at fault. I can't exactly overlook them. Jorgensen in goal, I mean, this game kind of proves that anybody who's claiming that he needs to be starting over Sanchez, he's not any better. You know, obviously, Sanchez is not good, and I'm not defending Sanchez. Petrovic should have been the one to be brought in, but Jorgensen's awful too. He's still young, so he has a lot of room to grow, which, to be fair, Sanchez is young for a keeper too. But, I mean, Jorgensen showed against Morecambe when he dropped all of those easy crosses. He's got mistakes in him too. Tonight, he made 2 saves, I think, and one was right at him. Actually, they were both right at him. One was Matoma hit him in the stomach, and the other one deflected off of his face and onto the post. And then he also played a Sanchez-like pass across the top of the box to the, I think it was João Pedro, and we got lucky that he just put it over the net. This is what we can expect from him. He's not a quality keeper either. They're both full of mistakes. We're stuck without a high-quality keeper, and in my opinion, even though Sanchez is full of mistakes as well, he at least can pull off some good saves. That first goal that Matoma scored, Sanchez probably would have saved that one. Jorgensen is not the answer. He's not going to help us. He's not going to be better than Sanchez. Gusto shouldn't be starting over James, but like I said, James is probably feeling something. He's probably going to be injured in a couple weeks. So we're just stuck with Gusto right now. And he's not a bad player, but where Maresca has him playing in the type of role Maresca wants him to play, he's not capable of doing that. And that's why he's had a worse season this year than he did last season, because last season he was able to be a bit more of a wing back, and I think that's where he thrives. Trying to do the inverted role, he's not good at it. It definitely shows. Chalobah, unfortunately, not a good game from him. He was, I think, the one thing that they did right in January was bringing him back, but tonight showed he still has a lot of gaps in his game as well, and it's why we need a more experienced defender back there. We need somebody like a Silva that can be a leader and can guide some of these younger defenders, because I think Chalobah is a good defender, but he needs guidance. So does Colwill. I mean, Colwill's kind of in the same boat, had his mistakes, had his moments of lapse of concentration. They're both good, solid young defenders, but we need experience. And especially defensively, we need experience. Cucurella has had probably a better season, probably his best season in Chelsea Blues so far, but tonight showed he still has gaps, a lot of gaps in his game, because Mente just absolutely destroyed him for both of his goals. And it's as simple as he just dives in. He's not a quality defender. He's not good in one-on-one situations. He's busy. He's energetic. He's all over the pitch. But when it comes to actually defending with quality, breaking down, forcing a player one way, not diving in, he's not good at any of that. But he's our only option at left back, so we have to stick with him. Thank you, transfer team. Caicedo and Fernandez in the midfield, it's going back to that same issue we had for the past couple of seasons where they don't really work well together. You know, we're still doing the thing where Fernandez is pushing forward and Caicedo is in there with either Gusto or Cucurella. It feels like we're not seeing the quality there. Caicedo today was getting run by a little too easily, getting turned a little too easily. Defensively, I just didn't think he was at his usual level that we're used to seeing. And Fernandez hasn't really done much in the past run of games going forward. You know, he had his run of games where he was getting assists or goals. He's not done anything recently, so it feels like he's starting to drop off. Wings-wise, you know, Madueke, I'm not really a fan of him, but he had at least a little bit of penetration getting in behind, and now, of course, he's going to be out with another hamstring injury to add to the list that we have. Neto, disappointing from him. He's not had that quality in the final third recently. He had a decent goal against West Ham, but other than that, he's not really provided much. He gets stripped way too easily. He doesn't really take on players as much as he should be. it's just too easy to defend against him. He should be more dangerous with the quality he has. Palmer, the problem with Palmer is he's getting marked out of the game, and there's nobody else around him really that's near his level, that is capable of doing what he's able to do. So he's looking for help, and he just doesn't have it because nobody else is on the same page as him, and so he constantly loses possession, or he has to go backwards because that's his only option. I'm worried because it feels like he's going to start to lose interest because teams are figuring out how to defend against him and keep him out of the game, and his teammates are doing nothing to help him. So I'm not going to be surprised if he wants to go somewhere where there are other players around him that can help him, that can get him out of a tough situation or give him options to get out of a tough situation. And like I said, the board very likely to take that offer if it comes in, especially if it makes them a lot of money. And frankly, if we lose a guy like Palmer, we're going to be teetering near that relegation zone very quickly for sure. And then Nkunku up top, I mean, he's not a 9. We know this. We've seen this. And yet Maresca keeps trying him up there, and I don't really understand why. When you've got other options that could be a better false 9 than Nkunku fitting into what Maresca wants us to play like. Here's the thing, Nkunku could be a false 9 if we were maybe a little bit more pragmatic in how we play, but we tend to push very high, put a lot of pressure on, and Nkunku doesn't do that. And so the defense and the goalkeeper have so much time to play when he's up there, and like I said, we've given up assists from goalkeepers from against Man City, and now tonight Verbruggen does it for their first goal. It's so easy to do that because Nkunku's not putting high press on. So if we just sat back a little bit more whenever we have Nkunku, I know he doesn't have a whole lot of pace to break out, so it's not like we could look to play like a counterattacking style. But I think we could look to just sort of sit back, let them come on to us, not leave so much space in behind us, and then try to work how we do with that slow build-up play. I don't necessarily think that's working, but at least it doesn't leave us so exposed. It doesn't leave all of that space in behind where Nkunku's not putting the press on, and then they're able to just knock it over the top to run into 50 yards of space because our defense is all the way up at half field. It's just very easy to see that, and yet Maresca doesn't make that change. He continues to go with Nkunku up top. I fully expect him in the next match to go with Nkunku up top, and I don't understand why. Do we not have a young player on the youth team that could step into that role? Do we not have Neto, I think, could easily step up there and do that role better than Nkunku does, even though he's not a striker. So unfortunately for him, that's kind of his big issue, is he's being played out of position and he's playing in a system that does not suit him. And I really don't understand why he was not the one out the door in January over Felix, because Felix was much more useful to what Maresca's trying to do than Nkunku was, and yet he's the one that's still here. Makes no sense to me. As far as the subs that came on, Sancho didn't really do much, and he's been disappointing recently. His form since, I would say, probably mid-December has just completely gone out the door. No idea what happened. I mean, obviously, we know he's a bit of an attitude problem, so I don't know if he's just losing that interest, losing himself, but he's not helped us at all. James came on for Gusto, and that one just, it helped a little bit because James is more suited to what Maresca's trying to do over Gusto, but again, don't know how long we're going to have him before his hamstring goes out again. And then the final subs just kind of felt like maybe some fresh legs to see if anything can change, and nothing really did. Dewsbury-Hall comes on for Caicedo. It's much easier now to play through the midfield, which it was already easy to, because Caicedo was not at his best, but I mean, Dewsbury-Hall just gets run by way too easily. George, decent little player, probably the most exciting change that we saw today. But the problem with George is he's a little too young right now to be stepping into his first team and be the one to create something. I think ultimately we will see him probably in a couple of years, assuming that we're not going to see him go out the door because of financial stuff again. But right now, he's not the answer. And unfortunately, it kind of feels like he might be the only answer that we have at wings, because the rest of our wings are just not giving us anything that we need. So with all that being said, I'm just not excited. I've already lost a lot of my excitement for this season when we started to go through this little bit of a blip, but now we've just reached a point where I don't see how we turn it around. Until Jackson gets back, and even then, we've just lost our answers, and Maresca is refusing to change anything. And we knew this was going to happen. We knew he was a stubborn manager because he did the same thing at Leicester last season, but the problem is that Leicester were already in a position to where they could afford to be stubborn. He could afford to be stubborn and lose some matches because they put themselves in such a good position early on that stubbornness was disappointing and it was frustrating for them, but they were still fine come the end of the season. For us, we are in a position where that stubbornness is now taking us out of Europe. And the fact that apparently that's not even the goal anymore, I truly don't understand what the thinking is behind that. Because top 4 should have been our goal. It wasn't a title challenge. Most of us knew that it wasn't a title challenge, but most of us accepted that top 4 was the goal. And yet now all of a sudden it's not our goal. That's not what we want to do. We don't want to end up in the best European competition because, I don't know, that's too ambitious. We don't want to be too successful early on. I don't get it, and it's really disappointing. To go from where we were 2 months ago, early December, it felt good. It felt like we were in a good position. It felt like even though we knew it wasn't going to be as good as it was throughout the rest of the season, we knew we were probably going to hit some bumps in the road. At that time, it felt like we had at least figured out what we were trying to do. We had figured out a way to win the matches that we should be winning, and now we can't even win those matches anymore. Now we can't even win the simple matches. We're losing everything, or we're drawing everything. We're dropping points almost every week. And it's disappointing, it's frustrating, and I don't know what's going to change. But something needs to. Or else, I know for a fact a lot of these Chelsea fans, myself included, are quickly going to lose faith in the manager and the players and the board. I feel like most of us already have. But some of those faithful that tend to stick with it a little bit longer, that have that little bit of optimism, some of them maybe a little too much optimism, but some of those fans are going to start to lose it too if we continue to see this downward trajectory continue in the way it is. But I think that's about it for all I have to say. Probably try to do a review of the next match. I don't know how much longer these reviews are going to continue for this season, because at some point I might just get frustrated with it, but we'll see. But until next time, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts in the game and the past couple of games? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all the good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Chelsea reviews. Also check out the channel. We have a lot of reviews on there, as well as some Let's Plays, so check those out if you have time. But until next time, I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you all later. Peace out.